Hello, everyone, and welcome back to a brand new Rocket Lab Weekly. This is episode 68, and today we have Dave G with us. Dave, thank you for coming.
No problem.
And we might have Matt Money with us. I don't know if he's coming. If he shows up, that's amazing. If not, we still have a very good guest. So, Dave, what a week this has been. Super much happening in the space industry.
Yeah. Been fun. Hasn't stopped. New Glenn, Starship, obviously Blue Ghost launching as well, and the Bill Nelson. I don't know if you saw this. It was pretty funny. He deleted the post on Twitter, but the current NASA administrator, who was outgoing, posted a Twitter post or X post, basically congratulating Blue Origin on New Glenn's launch. But he included a picture of a Falcon 9 with it. I was just like, yeah, that seems about right for the current administration. So anyway, that was funny.
I completely missed that. I never thought that we would have a day when, because it's funny, in Europe, like the New Glenn launch was in the morning and then the Falcon 9 was in the evening. So for me, it was like, I guess for the US people, it was like, yeah, the night before and then the afternoon the day after. But I never thought we will have a 24-hour period when Jeff Bezos makes it to orbit and Elon Musk doesn't, or SpaceX doesn't. It's a weird sentence.
Yeah, it's a little different.
Okay, and so let's start with, how's your outlook? How's your portfolio doing this week? Any notable events?
You know what? I guess I'll just be honest, because I feel like, some people can always relate. And this past week, it was, Sunday night going into Monday, I'm like, okay, I'm going to hit the gym every other day at least. I'm going to make at least 3 videos. I'm going to do all this research and work on my DCFs. Monday comes around, work is crazy with all these problems. I'm tired after work. It's dark out. It's cold in the winter. And I was just like, ugh, the motivation wasn't there. So yeah, didn't get as much done as I wanted. Probably, wasn't an amazing week, but oh well, it was still okay. How about you?
I 10,000% can relate. I have a full-time job. I have 4 kids and I want to make a video every day, and it takes research to make a video. And I always make the videos after the kids go to sleep. And many nights this week, they went to sleep late. And then, when I start researching the video too late, it's like, yeah, sometimes I don't get it done. So, and also the stock market, it's like we're not just going up anymore. So it's not as exciting as it was. Oh my God, look who's back. Fool's Gold. Next week is going to be a very, very special episode. People stay tuned. It's going to be very exciting. We will have a special guest. I'm not disclosing who it is. And Dave, I think somebody wants to know about the house. Did you end up buying?
Yeah. Well, we've been looking at houses. There was one the wife really liked last week. We were actually out looking during the weekly. So we're going to go look at it again tomorrow and bring my parents and get their thoughts on it. And we have a few more lined up to go look at, like 4 or 5 to look at tomorrow. So we'll see how it goes. If it's possible we end up putting an offer in on this one that we already kind of liked. There's a few that the listings look good, but sometimes you show up in person and it's just like, how did they make this look so good on the listing on the website? But yeah, so we'll see if there's any other contenders, but it's expensive. So I've been selling some stock.
Yeah, I fully understand. It was so funny. We had last week Scott here, and he was like, I asked him about the economy in Canada, and he's like, it's basically impossible to get a house in Canada. And then it came up like, where's Dave? Oh yeah, he's buying a house. And I'm like, Scott, it doesn't work what you're saying.
Well, but luckily the markets have been good to me. So, but I can fully see how it would be difficult. Yeah. And it is difficult, even for us. So.
It's difficult everywhere. All right, peeps. Let's get going with the Rocket Lab news and then the space industry news. And by the way, Dave has to leave in like 30 minutes. So maybe it's 25 now. So just so that nobody gets surprised.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'll hang in here as long as I can.
Awesome. So we're going to start with the first news, which is that Rocket Lab has launched Varda Space. Okay, it wasn't Rocket Lab, sorry. SpaceX has launched. Varda Space is, what do you call it? Spacecraft that is going to come back to Earth again. Oh my God, call me Curtis. Thank you so much for the 5 new memberships that you have gifted. So back to what I was saying. I think I have a whole. No, it's going to come later. So, what do you think about this news? There is one more confirmed launch with the Varda Space, and then Rocket Lab is saying that there's a 4th launch. Varda Space is not saying. Did we come to a resolution on this? I want to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I don't think we came to a firm resolution on that. Maybe the sticking point is that 4th launch will be like, or 4th craft will be after Varda does their first own custom vehicle or something like that. But, you know, they're just really knocking off these spacecraft and getting them out the door. So it's good to see. Seems like they're going to be making pretty good progress on the Globalstar constellation this year as well. And, you know, hopefully that brings in more room for more contracts as well. I think, you know, this specific deal with Varda, like whether it's 4 or 3, it'll be coming to the end relatively soon. And I'm kind of curious to see the future of this specific spacecraft bus, because I don't think it's quite as, you know, in demand as, say, Lightning with that they're using for the Globalstar contract.
Yeah. The space systems are very, very hard to follow, you know, like which satellite bus, at least for me, it's very hard to follow. So it's interesting that you say that this one is not so in demand as other one. Is this the Pioneer?
Yeah, I always lose track of the names now. I think it is
Photon. We just call it Photon. That's the simplest. You know, Peter Beck was saying that. Yeah, exactly. He said like they called everything Photon, and that was actually a good thing. We could follow it. You know, it's like if they're building a spacecraft, it's Photon. You know.
Yeah.
Cool. So we go on to the next one, which for me was one of the best news this week, and very few companies that you own that you can say it has gone to the moon. But Rocket Lab actually last week has gone to the moon. Because they are the ones who provided, I believe, the solar panels for and the software for Firefly's moon lander. Did I get it correctly? Did they provide also the solar part of that?
It's it. Yeah, solar and max flight software.
Yeah. They are not on the moon yet, so it was launched on a Falcon 9 rideshare. I believe what I heard was that it will take 2 to 3 weeks to arrive to the moon. And I guess it's a very big step to land on the moon. I'm very curious if they're going to do it. As far as I understand, Firefly has 3 moon landing missions. This is the first one. And that's also something that is very hard to nail on the first try. I don't know. Yeah. What do you think their chances are?
I mean, personally, I feel like you have, well, I don't know. I want to believe in their execution and the company, but then you look at, you know, Intuitive Machines, they failed their first landing attempt. iSpace failed their first landing attempt. We had Astrobotic fail their first landing attempt. So, you know, history has not been kind to these commercial companies attempting to land on the moon the first time, but I would put Firefly as maybe a bigger company than some of those other ones. And obviously they've experienced building their own whole rocket and stuff like that. So maybe there's a bit more expertise there, but could be a coin toss if it lands properly. What do you think?
Do you think they can learn from each other? Like, for example, if they like watch Intuitive Machines and then they speak to Intuitive Machines engineers and they're like, yeah, we misdesigned this, or, you know, the software was missing this.
probably could. I don't know if they want to, how much they want to help out competitors and stuff like that. It's a big question mark to me. But definitely, I think they all learn from their own, failed launches or failed landings.
Then I ask you a very interesting question. So if this landing fails, whose fault is it?
If it fails, it's Firefly's fault.
Okay, so they cannot go like, oh, the flight software was not working, not giving the correct data, or there was this glitch or that glitch, or
you got to decide where the buck stops, I guess. Like everyone has suppliers, but ultimately, who's building the vehicle? I think it's Firefly. So
yeah. Well, all right. So just for how do you call it? Curiosity's sake, this SpaceX Falcon 9 launch is the first rideshare mission of the year. So this is the one that took Firefly's and Rocket Lab's moon lander, and it had a lot of spacecraft. So Rocket Lab had Firefly on it. They also had Varda Industries Winnebago 2. And they also had a satellite from a YouTuber. It was basically 131 payloads together, which is a very big number. And this is a little bit off topic, but it's just 1 minute. I want to show you guys like this YouTuber, what he sent up to space. And I think he's going to make money on it. I'm curious what you guys think. Again, it's just for curiosity's sake. So here is
very cool. When I saw that, by the way, I was like, wait, a YouTuber is sending a satellite into space? There's hope for us, Vince.
When is your satellite going up?
I just want a house. Can't be blowing all my money on a satellite. Anyway.
Okay, so I'm pretty sure the audio is not going to work. So please show like this if the audio is working.
This is my brand new custom built called Sat Gus, and in about a month, she'll be zooming by way up in space at 5 miles per second. But what makes Sat Gus so special is that she's got a phone right here and a camera right here, and her sole purpose is to take your selfie in space with the Earth photobombing you. And it gets even cooler, because if you tell me the city you live in when you upload your picture to the satellite, we'll not only take the selfie over your city, but we'll tell you precisely when that will happen. So if you go out to your yard and wave, you'll technically be in the photo twice. It's incredible we live in a day and age where just an everyday civilian like you and me can just decide to build something and then send it to space. So today, I'm going to give you a 6-step crash course that will tell you all you need to know to build and launch your own creation to space one day. And these 6 steps are very near and dear to my heart, because these are the exact same 6 steps I first learned when I was a young engineer at NASA working on the Mars rover. So
all right, so that is one space application I never thought of, but it's super cool. I mean,
very cool idea. Reminds you, if you read, or I mean, you've read When the Heavens Went on Sale and how early Planet Labs got started. They're just like, hey, I think phone technology off the shelf can survive in orbit. Let's just try it and all this crazy stuff. But it actually, that satellite reminded me a little bit of a dove from. Anyway, it's a very cool project.
Yeah, and I think it's going to make money. It's such a cool idea, or like a gift to the family, and even this that you can go out exactly when the satellite is there, and then you will technically be twice on the picture. I'm gonna see if I can sign up and get a space selfie. It's I don't know what it costs, but I think they're going to make money with this.
Hope so. I'd love to see more crowdsourced space missions. That'd be a very cool idea.
Yeah, and it's even more funny that you think about space and you're like, oh, these 100 million projects, and I mean, like, this is still probably $1 or $2 million. He did say in the video that it was like the satellite was like in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then I don't know, probably the launch was something, but it's not a big budget when you think about space. So anyways, I'm very excited about that one. So maybe we will come up with a good idea, and then
think about it.
I just got an idea. We send up a similar satellite, and because we are like rocket themed, so when there is a rocket launch, then we will like direct the satellite near it, and then you can get a selfie like with like the neutron in it, or the electron in it, or something like this.
Sure. Yeah.
There you go. Just made $1 million. Yeah, he only has 63 million subs. Yeah, he said, average people like you and me. I'm like, yeah, I don't have 63 million subs. All right, so we go to the next Rocket Lab news. So there is an interview with Peter Beck coming by Space Minds, and I looked. It's so far it's only a teaser that is out. As far as I could see, the whole interview is not out, but I just want to say it looks to be a cool interview, and it's dropping soon. So that's the whole news. Or did I miss that it's out, or no? Or
I didn't see that it was out. I just also thought it was interesting how you have these, I guess, this space news website's been around a while, and now they're moving into YouTube too. And then it's like, oh, they're moving into our territory. But it'll be funny for a little while how you and me can say we're bigger than space news on YouTube until they grow their subscriber counts.
Yeah. All right, and then we go to the next one, and that is the year's first launch announcement. I believe it's only missing the launch date, but other than that, I think this is going to be this year's first launch by Rocket Lab. What do you think?
Yeah, there was some speculation recently out of Wallops that a recent launch could have been a HASTE. I think it looked like it was more likely to be a sounding rocket of some sort. So I guess that would make this the first launch. Yeah, they're really getting these Kines launches out pretty quick.
Yeah, I think it was confirmed on Twitter by someone that it was not a HASTE launch.
Okay, good. Yeah. Thought so.
Yeah. And funny story. So last week or 2 weeks ago, when Scotto didn't manage to make it, I asked him if there was something that he wants to talk about, and then he wrote, I guess he was very busy, and then he wrote HASTE launch from Wallops. And then I asked you, did you hear anything? Because Scotto says that there is a HASTE launch in Wallops. And then after the episode, he sent me a lot of laughing faces, and he's like, no, I meant that there is this myth going around, and it's not a HASTE launch. But I'm like, yeah, you didn't say that, but we were all like, yeah, Scotto says it, so it must be, he must know what he's talking about. But he also thought that it was not a HASTE launch, so we take it at its face value. The last Rocket Lab news is there was a payload report that came out for Rocket Lab. It's a 40-page report that I have opened here. So one of the first things that is really interesting in it is that it says sponsored by Rocket Lab. Why do you think Rocket Lab does that? Or
I'll be honest, yeah, I don't know why. I've seen they've I don't know if you follow the Payload newsletter, their website, anything like that. It's a great source of information, but I have seen the ads for Neutron popping up in the Payload newsletter, and I guess there's a lot of industry folks who read it, so it makes sense to me. Why they would kind of pay, I assume it's paid if they're sponsoring a kind of company report by Payload. I don't know. It's a little strange to me. I mean, it gives us some interesting information, and I do recommend everyone reads it, but yeah, you don't usually see this kind of thing from most companies.
Yeah, and I mean, I read the report, and there was nothing in it that was new or there's one very interesting thing that I also want to take up here, which is their own speculation, right? Their own thoughts about Rocket Lab. But the factual stuff that they wrote about Rocket Lab, I don't think you will find anything new there or that is not out in the market. And the only thing that this does, I feel, is if you're an analyst who is into other stocks, and then you're look at Rocket Lab, they're a really good company, and they're like, no, I have to study so much, it's a space stock, brand new area, then you can give this to them, and you're like, look, here's everything in one place. You just read it, and then you will that's the only use of this report that I see.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's still an interesting read for some of us who know the company better, but say it's probably the most valuable to newcomers who are like, okay, I can just read this one report. All the information is kind of condensed in one place for the most part, and learn about the company.
That's a very interesting comment by Curtis. I completely did not think about that. He says they're probably preparing a report for a capital raise. Very, very interesting. Maybe could very well be. So now it seems like when you read this, you got the same, like you noticed the same part as me in it. And that is, in the end, there is a pure, like they actually say it's pure speculation. Rocket Lab didn't provide input. It's payload research's thoughts. But they go into like how Rocket Lab could build their own space infrastructure. And they go into their own thoughts on it, which is basically that it's much better for Rocket Lab to acquire a company that already has space infrastructure in space. And I never thought about that. And they give the points that if they do it, there is a lot of synergies, obviously, because Rocket Lab can launch, for very cheap. So basically, if they buy, then they don't have the risk of setting up a brand new constellation. It's also that when they acquire an established company, then they already know that there is demand and customers for that type of space infrastructure. And also that some of these existing companies can have radio spectrums that are very, very valuable that are being used. And then they speculate on what kind of space infrastructure they might build, and what's the plus and minus points for each. And they also come to the conclusion that it's probably not good to go into Earth observation. And their guessing is that there is satellite communications broadband when you is basically space internet, and it's very lucrative. There's a lot of money spent there, but there is huge existing, like it's very capital intense, and there is huge existing companies competing in this. And then there is satellite communication, which is ancillary connectivity. I don't know if I said that right. I had to Google what that word is. It's basically secondary.
Secondary.
Like secondary support communication for satellites. And there is actually companies that are within Rocket Lab price range that they could acquire, and it's a very interesting report. So Dave, what were your thoughts when you read this, and how credible do you think this is?
And it's just I forget his name, the payload employee, was it Ryan? Anyway, or Jack. Anyway, yeah, it's kind of their opinion. Oh, and I see Dave commenting there. I guess we don't know for sure if Rocket Lab actually paid for this, or they just kind of, talked to Payload and gave them a bit of access or something. But yeah, I kind of agreed. It was where I was thinking, like some kind of not a direct Starlink competitor. I don't think it's Earth's observation. Not a lot of really big Earth observation constellations that need, call it like dedicated neutron launches. If you look at Planet, they're just using rideshare, and then there's other Earth observation companies that just use Electron. So I don't think EO would really leverage neutron, which is kind of what they keep saying. We need neutron for the constellation. So some kind of data relay, some kind of, it could be, IoT or some other kind of communications was sort of my bet. That's not a direct broadband competitor to Starlink and Kuiper and AST, because I thought that was a little bit too much for the company to take on.
It's going to be space selfies.
I mean, there's a market apparently.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. So it's very interesting report. I recommend everyone. It's 40 pages, but it's very fast to read, and there's a lot of pictures. I think it will take you, I don't know, 10-20 minutes to read through it, and very interesting theories floated in it. Cool. That was all the Rocket Lab news this week. But as you know, there has been super much other. Ashley Vance actually tweeted that this week he thinks more like several decades worth of space activity has happened this week. And I tend to agree with him. We can start with the first one. We go from smallest towards bigger, you know. Stoke Space has raised 260 million in a new investment, and they are a very interesting company. I want to actually interview Andy Lapsa on the channel. I wrote them before, and they told me to pound sand. No, they just told me to that maybe later.
Yeah.
But what do you think? I actually think they might be a viable company in the future.
Yeah, I mean, they're an interesting one. From what I've seen online, you know, just following other rocket folks who know more than I do, there was a ton of optimism around Stoke, and they kind of released a little bit of a redesign where you can see the rocket is a little bit pointier than it used to be at the top, and they changed some things. And I think they released some more firm numbers on, I don't know, for propulsion and different things. And some people seem to be a little bit less bullish on them than they are. There's also a recent interview Andy did. I didn't watch it myself yet, but I heard some commentary about it that they're kind of big focus right now is just going to get to orbit, and they'll kind of try to add the reusability bit down the line. So there's some confusion about that because, you know, everyone's saying 100% reusability was their big thing. So online, I'm seeing a little bit less excitement about them lately. This is a big raise by them. I think it was like a Series C, so that's a lot of money. And you know, up to this point, they haven't really had that much capital, so it'll be interesting to see what they do with it. I do tend to think pure launch companies are never going to be an amazing business, and they'll have to, you know, eventually get into the fully integrated space company, hopefully. But yeah, they're starting with launch. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean that you know, I feel that on this rocket reusability, like everybody has this romantic idea. Even Jeff Bezos had this romantic idea that they're going to launch New Glenn and land it on the first try, and they were really going for it. And I just feel it's like unicorns; they don't exist. You know, you have to go through. You have to go through the trial and error and you know, prove out that you have customers. You can launch to orbit. So I mean, when I heard it, I wasn't surprised because I don't think it's possible to go for reusability on your first try. And I'm very impressed with their capital efficiency so far, and also their speed, because as far as I understand, like they're moving really fast and they're very capital efficient. But just as you pointed out, a launch business is never going to be a good enough standalone business. So we see how they're going to, what their future plan is going to be. I definitely think they have a shot at, like, out of all the companies, you know, Relativity, Firefly, I think.
Yeah. I've always felt they have a better plan than Relativity. I was never big on Relativity. Firefly seemed more legitimate, but they're so light on the details on MLV, and we don't know much about their reusability plans. Where Stoke, like the concept and the plan seemed like a really cool idea. We'll shoot for this fully reusable vehicle, like 3 to 5 tons, coming in, you know, in an area of the market where there's not really a lot of commercial options out there. And from what I understand, their first stage engine that's been undergoing testing is quite impressive. So,
yeah. All right. So the next news that is space news of the week is that Blue Origin's New Glenn actually lifted off on its maiden flight. And what's really interesting is this debut is key for several public companies, such as AST, which, you know, certain prominent members of the Rocket Lab community are very bullish on. The Amazon Kuiper project, the Telesat, which is Apple's satellites, which Rocket Lab is building via MDA?
No, I think that's a different one, actually. They're also
is
being built
different
by MDA, though, which is the, subcontracting to Rocket Lab on those Global Star ones. But
Okay,
else,
okay,
that's like
okay.
a Canadian constellation, I believe.
Okay.
I'm not
Sorry, I messed it up. But there's a lot of dependency on this rocket. I thought that they would mostly have government contracts, and because I thought they were very non-competitive, and apparently they have a niche because they do have quite a lot of customers. And additionally, New Glenn is the one that is going to launch NASA's Escapade spacecraft, which was also built by Rocket Lab.
Yeah.
Here is Blue Origin's tweet where they confirm that they are in orbit on the first try. And yeah. So I guess
I'm
this
seeing Astra's reply down there.
Oh, yeah. Huge congrats.
Astra congratulating them. Still around. I will say one thing, because you talked a little bit about how you were surprised how many commercial payloads they have and stuff like that. I do think it helps when you have, second richest person in the world just funding. Like they're just setting the price whatever they want. I don't think they're setting it for a level that like would be required for a viable business. But there is demand there clearly for non-SpaceX vehicle, heavy lift vehicle. They've got a lot of payloads coming up, so it was good to see the flight. It was very exciting.
Yeah, you are actually right, because because rocket launches, they only make sense if you can do them at cadence, and to get up to cadence, you need to burn a lot of money and maybe give a lot of discounts. So, and Blue Origin is definitely not a public company, and for a private company, they're very not transparent. So we don't know what is going on with them, how much money they're losing.
Yeah. One thing we saw a while back, I think it was we found it out on like some kind of on the NASA side, seeing some kind of document, was they're only paying like 20-30 million for the Escapade launch, I think it was, which is obviously like, that's less than half of a Falcon 9 launch. So it was going to be a first launch, so I guess it makes sense for the discount, but it's still very low.
Yeah, that's crazy low. I think that the rocket build cost is maybe more currently than like it's a negative gross margin to launch that. Yeah, and
building the heritage though, it's valuable.
Exactly. And then the next news of the week is obviously the Starship launch, which ended up in the world's most expensive but very, very beautiful fireworks. It's
some of those views were amazing when I saw them online. Yeah.
It's as I said, it's probably the most expensive fireworks on the planet. It was amazing views. Although I felt like it was test flight number 7, they already caught the booster once. I felt like they didn't really learn anything on that, and they needed to, like, the reason why they were doing this test is to test the heat shields and they had the dummy Starlink payload which they were supposed to test, and then Starship blew up shortly after stage separation. So I would call this a failure. I don't think Musk was happy with this test.
Yeah, maybe not happy. There was a ton of changes on this flight, so I guess it's just kind of how SpaceX rolls. I think what a lot of people don't really get when they're not space fans, and they look at, oh my God, it's a 7th launch and it's still blowing up, is they're trying to like build up to a system here, including the ground infrastructure, where they can launch like every day or more. They are extremely ambitious about the whole program. So, blowing up one rocket or whatever to try and figure out what their limits are and test new heat shields and stuff is another MO.
Yeah, that was the other thing.
We didn't get a firm answer on the cause of the explosion yet, did we? Or
We
was there a
sort
leak?
of got it. Yeah, like some oxygen leak in the lower tanks, and
Okay.
yeah. And again, that's also a thing that I'm like, okay, you did all these designs. There was new flaps, there was new this, new that, and I'm like, and really, like like oxygen leak from the tanks to the, like, it feels such a basic. Like, I feel like some people are getting fired for that because it's not.
From what
Like,
I
it's not
understand of Elon, he'll just fire people anyway. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. And so the second thing I wanted to ask you, because I don't fully track or don't know the plan for the Starship. I thought it would be a few test flights, and then they're going to start like flying payloads to start offsetting the R&D costs. And now we had the 7th flight, and I was thinking if Rocket Lab would be doing this with Neutron, where do you think the stock price would be, or
Yeah.
or the cash balance of Rocket Lab? Because it's not. I mean, the rockets, you still have to build them. They're not cheap. And SpaceX has spent like 7.5 billion to date on the Starship program. And for me, it's like these guys really have unlimited money that they are able to just, fly and blow up rockets and not fly with customers. Because, you could still fly payloads, put them in space, and then how they did with the Falcon 9 is that they were always testing on the way back. So what do you know about this, or what do you think about this?
What do I know about it? Well, I mean, yeah, it's kind of just like I guess it's kind of Elon's way as well. It's just like go big or go home, and they're going like very big on this one, pretty all in, I guess you could say. The private markets are very kind to SpaceX. Everyone wants a piece. They want to be involved. It doesn't hurt that the valuation is kept ballooning. So I think you also get FOMO on the venture capital side of things, and they're making some pretty big promises that I'm sure they tend to fulfill. So I understand the excitement behind it. It's a lot of money, and I think if they really do what they set out to do, they can certainly justify that investment. But yeah, it's a lot of cash burn up front. I wish we had more of an insight into their finances, how much cash they had on hand or have on hand.
Because I just want to add, what's also very interesting is, let's say they spend 10 billion on this program. Like, they need to earn that money back. So when they're saying that a launch is going to be like 2 billion like that's the fuel cost of the launch, and you add, I don't know, a few million more for the personnel and pad and whatever, and then you have the price of the rocket, which I don't know how. Like, let's say that if the rocket is 30 million and it's 10 launch, then you amortize that, so it's like 3 million for the rocket per launch, and then you have the R&D of the freaking rocket. And I mean, 10 billion is 10,000 million, and how many launches do you amortize that over? Like,
well, as I said, they're trying to, their plan is for like an unprecedented level of cadence on this thing. But yeah, I was having this debate online recently. I was talking to someone, and he was basically like, they don't have to earn back any development costs on Starship itself. They can just, as long as they can operate for break even on Starlink or whatever, they'll be fine. But yeah, I mean, it'll take a while. It'll take a lot of launches.
Yeah.
The one thing is that I think, Starlink is, will be extremely lucrative for them. So
yeah. I mean, look, I just calculated, if it's over 200 launches, which is like, let's say that you look at the Falcon 9 scaling, and this is going to scale faster, right? But it's still like 7-8 years to get to 200 launches, maybe. It's still 50 million per launch if you're amortizing it that fast. So it, like, just what I said, like, just the cost that we put together is like 70 million per launch.
yeah. Be very interested to see what they actually start charging for a Starship launch, given all the numbers Elon's thrown out there. And I've followed him online for a while. I'm a Tesla investor. I remember seeing aspirational prices for like the Model S and the Model 3 and Y. Even Cybertruck was announced. It was going to cost something like $38,000 for the base package, and that never, I think it's like $100,000 truck right now, but it's going to be a very effective rocket.
Yeah, I mean, and look, he said that the fuel cost of the rocket is $2 to $3 million, and people understood it that it's going to cost $2 to $3 million, but he didn't say that. He said the fuel cost is $2 to $3 million. I mean,
right.
If I don't know if once you have paid off the R&D, like maybe you can launch for 10, 15 million with still having margin on the thing. If the ship can be reused like hundreds of times, maybe you can get down to that price. But yeah,
I mean, Alfredo makes a good point on the demand side as well. Such like 100 tons to orbit, especially when they're getting up to such a massive cadence, is demand could become an issue, even if they're launching everything they need for Starlink, and then you have orbital refueling to go to the moon for the HLS program, as well as his Mars plan. Like, that's still a lot of launches where I'm still not, I don't know, like, I don't think steady state Starlink, like how many launches does it require from Starship?
I mean, it needs to be replenished, right? So it's for sure some, but
I think they've done maybe like 90 Starlink launches on Falcon 9 this year, and a Falcon 9 does like 16,000 like, yeah, so that would be like, I don't know, it still doesn't seem like that many Starship launches to me that will be needed.
No, I think it's the Mars missions that is going to be, because as far as I understand, like to go to Mars, you have to launch one Starship and then it has to be refueled 5 times. So like one ship to Mars is like 6 launches with the refueling.
Yeah.
And then he wants to send hundreds of them, right? So it's like, he was even speaking about thousands. And so it's like times 6. So if you want to send 1,000 ships, it's like 6,000 launches, which is insane.
A lot of fuel.
And if you use, because he wants to send them at one time, right? Because you have the Earth and Mars window. So if we just do a little count, so let's say
they could orbit Earth for quite a while though, and then once the window lines up, make a burn.
But let's say in a 2-year, like you have a 2-year period to like put them to orbit in Earth, and refuel them and have them ready. So that would be 2 years. No, sorry, it's like 6,000 launches, right? So 6,000 divided by 2 years, that's 3,000 launches per year divided by 52 weeks. That's 57 launches per day that they would need to do. Let's say they have 3 spaceports, then it's 19 launches per spaceport. That's like 1 per hour, basically, with no
wild and crazy stuff. It's unprecedented.
Definitely, that's one way to say it. Cool. I mean, that was all the news this week. I hope, I don't know if you missed your time.
I stayed a little long, but it's okay.
That's amazing. It's for the audience's sake. So what does he say? On orbit cryogenic propellant transfer and storage at scale is the next big objective, and will be a lot more fun to hammer down than most people realize. I don't fully understand this comment. I know that, for example, the heat shield on Starship is not at all solved yet, as far as I understand. So because to be able to fully reuse Starship, you need to have a so far undiscovered material or method that can withstand the heat, come down, and not need refurbishment. And my understanding is like SpaceX has ideas how to handle it, but like nothing that is like we know for sure that this is going to work. I do think they're going to solve it, but there is a version of the multiverse where it's just physically not possible to solve this problem. That would be a really weird thing, like Musk coming back and say like, look, we tried everything and it doesn't work. Like you need to refurbish after every flight. That would really suck.
What here's an interesting question for you. What would have to happen in order for you to think, oh my gosh, I think Starship might actually end up being like a failure, like a massive, expensive rocket that never ends up, scaling properly or earning back? Like, how, would you have to see failures for the next several years, or maybe they don't get propellant transfer down, or are we at the point where we already know it will be a success?
To be honest, it's the heat shield. Like I think because if they cannot figure out the heat shield, then however cheap Starship is to launch, you need 5 refuelings because of reusability to go anywhere, right? Like meaning to other planets. And let's say that you take, I think an Orion 5 is, which one was the rocket that I was reading that can directly go, like from one launch can go to Mars and doesn't need any refueling and is big? I think it's the Orion 5.
Maybe the 6?
Yeah, sorry, the 6. And the point is, like,
New Glenn can do that.
Yeah, and you see, like, if these, let's say that these rockets are 150 million, right? And let's say that Starship needs refurbishing, and the lowest price they can go is 40 million, which is very, very cheap. But if you have to spend 40 million 6 times to do the same thing as a how do you call it, like a New Glenn or an Ariane 6 launch, yeah, then the whole concept didn't really work. Like, I'm pretty sure that the in orbit fueling they will figure out. It doesn't feel like
oil off is a concern, though. Dave and a lot of other people are right about that one. You tend to lose fuel over time to boil off if you have it staying in space. But
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's a simpler problem to solve than this freaking heat shield that has been tried by super many engineers. Because if you think about it, you had the space shuttle program. There you had like thousands of engineers working on this problem. They couldn't come up with a good enough solution, and now SpaceX and many other companies and countries have been working on this. And even like SpaceX is confident that they will solve it. But in the last interview that Elon Musk did with Everyday Astronaut, he said that he has like things that they can try, but he doesn't have like, I know that this is going to work. Like, he doesn't have a concrete solution on this problem. So that's going to be interesting.
I still lean towards thinking they'll be largely successful. Just given SpaceX's history, probably will cost a lot more than he expects, and will take longer. But eventually, I think they'll be launching Starship fairly regularly.
Yeah. And I believe, like, we're not ready yet for such a, like, for sure he's going to transport people to Mars, but I think that the overall space economy needs to realize, like, oh my god, we actually can put such a big payload to orbit. And I think that they're going to start designing new space stations, different vehicles that actually fill up this payload, and then the demand will be created. Like, I actually agree with Peter Beck that I don't think that there is demand currently for such a huge vehicle that is in any cadence or commercially makes it viable.
Yeah, the space industry will need to grow into the new capacity that's available.
Yeah. Well, cool. I really enjoyed this discussion. I think we went through everything. This has been a huge week.
Hopefully we didn't go into too much Starship Weekly on folks, but it was an interesting week with the launch.
Yeah, and New Glenn Weekly. Yeah, I think it was. I mean, even if some people think we did, I think it had to be that this week we had to talk about it because it does influence Rocket Lab, and yeah, it's part of the space industry. Yeah, Dave Huntsman makes a good comment. Well, look at Falcon 9 capacity now. 70% is SpaceX. Yeah, so out of the 130 launches, like 100 launches is SpaceX's own launches. So there is not even enough demand for the Falcon 9, more than 30 launches. But I do believe we're gonna grow into this. The space economy is going to grow into this.
Or SpaceX just wants their Falcon 9 launches badly enough that be like, oh, commercial customers, you can wait. But I guess that's another way of looking at it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. All right. Thank you so much for being here. Thanks for everybody being here. And thank you for supporting the channel. Special thanks to Curtis and Fool's Gold. And Dave has given 5 memberships to his channel. If you have not picked it up, then please make sure you go over there and pick it up. Curtis gave 5 memberships to my channel. Please also make sure that you pick that up. And may your sky stay blue and stock stay green.
Like it.
Yeah. Ciao, ciao.